On today's video, we're smoking an 18-pound Packer brisket on the full-size Smokeslinger in offset mode. Stay tuned. All right, guys, we're back. This brisket is 18 pounds. It's just a good old-fashioned Packer brisket I bought from Sam's Club, Members Mark. There's nothing fancy about it. It's an Excel brand Angus brisket, and the grading on it looks like choice. We didn't get a prime. We didn't go over the top with a bunch of marbling. What we're gonna do is we're gonna smoke the best possible brisket we can on the full-size Smokeslinger using 100% wood fire, and I'm gonna set this Smokeslinger up for offset mode today. Now, offset mode on the full-size Smokeslinger, we're gonna move all the tuning plates to one side and have our fire on the other side. What's gonna happen is that we're gonna burn a wood fire in the charcoal basket, and that wood fire is gonna go straight up, all the way up to the top of the lid. It's gonna go across the lid and push back down at the other end before it can go out the exhausts on the side. Now, something to note about the Smokeslinger design, on purpose, we put our vents on the side of the Smokeslinger, and there's a set on each end, on both the mini and the full size. And we do that so that we can get that roll of our air off the lid. Now, that would duplicate the same behavior the air pattern does in an offset. If you see another style pit where the vents go straight out the top, you're gonna have a hard time spinning your air down and getting that smoke to roll back down to your brisket. Now, another thing that's important to note, there are 2 layers of cooking racks in the full-size Smokeslinger. Today, we're gonna use the bottom rack for most of the cook, but we wanna get that good yellow collagen render that we can see on an offset smoker when we're doing a 12-hour long brisket. Except today's goal, we're gonna try to get this thing done in less than 12 hours. Mostly because I'm gonna run out of light out here, and the second thing is I wanna go to bed at some point tonight. So this is gonna be a traditional Frank style cook where I'm cooking up till about, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock tonight, and then whenever I pull it out, we're gonna steam off all the radiant heat, and then we're gonna put this brisket to bed in the warmer overnight. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna have me some brisket and eggs, and I'm gonna cut this brisket up right in front of you. You're gonna love it, so stay tuned for the whole video. Before we get started setting up the Smokeslinger, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. Won't wear you out with it, but I do appreciate it. I'd like to bring you as much quality, valuable barbecue content as possible. All right, guys, so on today's setup, I'm gonna pull out a few of the tuning plates. I'm gonna move them all the way over to that side, and you've seen me do that before on some of our other videos. And then I'm also gonna pull out the insert out of this drawer. I'll be running my fire on this side today. The reason I'm pulling this insert out today is because I don't want to have too much air going to my fire. I want to kind of bundle things together since I'm using all wood. So we're going to start out at least with all of the wood pushed into the middle and right on the bottom of the drawer. We're just going to set this off to the side. Anyway, let's get this fire started. I'm going to start with a little bit of lump charcoal, and then we're going to transition to 100% wood. That's just an easy way to get your coal bed established in this pit. Okay, guys, so this is where we're gonna go ahead and add some wood to the fire. You'll see that's what I call a salt and pepper colored fire right there. So we're just gonna add 2 splits right on top. So when I say I'm gonna add 2 splits right on top, these splits right here are about, I don't know, 2 inches or so in diameter, 2.5, and then probably about 12 inches long, 10, 12 inches long is about the right size. And I'm just gonna put those 2 splits side by side right here, and then we're gonna let those 2 splits catch, and then we're gonna close this thing up. What I wanna do is get these 2 splits fully engulfed and starting to burn down to coals before I put on the next 2 splits. So we're gonna go ahead and shove this drawer in and give nature some time to catch up. Okay, while we're waiting on that fire to get started, we're gonna go ahead and trim up this brisket. This thing's been wet aging in the fridge probably 15 days. What I like to do when I buy one of these briskets is I like to find out as close as I can what the pack date was. And you can only get that information on the case that the brisket came in. It'll be like 5 briskets in a case. And what we're gonna do is just a pretty simple Texas style trim. We're gonna keep this thing all together. What the wet aging does is it kind of just lets this brisket settle down and get some tenderness started. You'll notice that this flat will actually flop over. It won't stay there because I haven't done any trimming on it yet, but That is a good indicator how tender this brisket is. Okay, so a lot of guys like to use a boning knife or some kind of a fillet knife. You can also use a brisket trimming knife. We're just gonna cut this decal off right here, give us a nice good flat spot. We're gonna save all of this. It's gonna go into making sausage. And invariably, you're always gonna get some new butcher got in there and screwed this up. But whenever I'm trimming one of these briskets, I like to get on the flat, I like to have everything at least as thick as my thumb, so that's gonna come off anyway. What did I hear somebody say one time? That thing will be a star somewhere else. So I kind of mercilessly trim briskets when I'm doing it. And we're trying to get it a nice round profile. That's what makes a brisket look nice on the cutting board. We don't want any sharp edges. So like this whole thing right here, we're just gonna come right on down the side, get rid of all of that. I know a lot of you guys have probably already seen a brisket trimmed, but this is for the new guys in the crowd. You can see we're starting to look like a cutting board brisket. And up in here, you'll see this little hanger tag thing. We got to get rid of that. Like I said before, that's all fat. That stuff will go in sausage or something at another date. I don't really get too carried away on the bottom here. I like to keep as much of that going as I can. Look at that, starting to look nice. Let's flip this thing over and take care of this mohawk here. Take care of some of this fat that we don't want. It's too thick. Like I said, no sharp corners allowed. Now I'm gonna flip this around where I can work it, but you can see how thick this fat is. We wanna keep that about 1/4 of an inch. And on this, there's a trick you can do. If you want, you can slice in and see, and then what'll happen, that'll heal itself. You won't even see it whenever the brisket is done. That way you can see kind of what you're dealing with for some thickness. What we want is a good uniform thickness on our fat. Also helps if this brisket is really cold when you bring it out and put it on the cutting board if you're trimming outside, because that fat starts to actually melt right on your cutting board. It's super hard to deal with wet fat. We're ready for some seasoning. That is gonna make a beautiful brisket. Now, if you wanted to know your yield, what you would do is you would weigh all of this fat to see what you got. I'd say I probably got about, mostly fat here, but it's probably about 4 pounds, maybe total. That doesn't freak me out. This was an 18, almost 19 pound brisket to start with, so we still got a good bit of weight there to deal with. Now we're gonna use some seasoning that my brother John Cook sent me. This is his beef seasoning. So far, I really like it. We used it last night here when we were cooking on the Mini. We made some pepper steak sandwiches, more like a combination hybrid pepper steak, cheese steak kind of sandwich. They were insanely good. So anyway, here we're gonna go ahead and get this thing a-rolling. Flip it around first. I like to do the bottom first. Gosh, that brisket just looks nice. Even though it wasn't like a highly marbled, super amazing Creekstone Farms brisket or something, it was still really good. I like this rub that Mr. John sent me because you can see some of the seasonings. They're pretty coarse grain, and that's gonna give us a beautiful appearance on this brisket. Some guys say don't do the sides. I disagree. One of my favorite bites on the whole brisket is the side, where the point and the flat come together on the side. I can't remember what that's called right now off the top of my head, but I like it a lot. Boom, there we go. Thank you, Mr. John, for this awesome bottle of seasoning. I am thoroughly enjoying this. Salt, pepper, garlic, and other spices. So now we're gonna let this thing sit and soak in the magic for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and get on this fire over here. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and pull this out. We're gonna set one more stick on here. I'm gonna set him across like that. And I'm gonna shut this door now. I'm gonna give it time for this split to light. And I wanna watch my temperature come up on the left-hand side to about 275. This thing looks so good right now. I'm just telling you, like, I like the trim. I like how it trimmed out. It's really nice and thick up here in the point and the flat where they overlap. This should make some really good barbecue. I like how this flat turned out, you know. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this thing on. We're running right at 275 on this side, and I've slid the top rack over out of my way so I can put this on the bottom rack. And now that I'm like talking about it and thinking about it, you want to make sure that the point is facing airflow. What that is that as the air comes up, it's going to be hitting up like this. So I want this point on that side where my fire basket is. So I'm gonna grab it, since I gotta turn around. I'm gonna grab it the right way. Here we go, guys. Let that smoke clear just a second. Got a really nice coal bed going over here. And you can hear that rack. You can hear that thing sizzle right there. And that's what we're looking at. Lean up in there a bit. Gonna have to get my camera dirty. Here we go. Of course, I've had it open for a minute. We're getting some flames. Now we got our brisket over here. The point is on that side. Our flat, everything's gonna come up and roll off the top of the lid, and it's gonna push back down and go out the exhaust. There you go. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down, and we're gonna let this fire settle down a little bit. And here in about probably 5 minutes, we're gonna check on things. So what I expect, because I had that lid open and our fire basket is down low, full of wood, you are gonna see some pretty enormous flames coming up. Don't let that freak you out. As soon as you close that lid down, that's gonna start to suffocate that fire down a little bit. It's gonna be a really nice clean fire once it settles down. You might actually notice the smoke right now is pretty blue coming out of there if you can see it on camera. And that's what we're shooting for. When you start to see that smoke getting really dirty, that just means that you're not getting enough air to your wood. In this situation, it doesn't really matter what this dial says. If it's like 350, 400, 450, I don't really care about that. The only thing I really care about is on this dial over here. Now that dial is above our brisket where the probe is reading, so it should read somewhere between 275 and 300 for the whole cook. I don't really stress out about that either. If it starts to climbing above where you want it, start dampering down on the exhaust a little bit and then the intake more. But you don't want to dirty up your fire. Once we get everything settled down here though, the first couple of hours, everything's just gonna lock in and we're gonna have a really pleasant cook. I'm gonna sit at that table right there in a chair and enjoy the breeze and drink some iced tea because today's an iced tea kind of day here in mid-Missouri. So anyway, let's clean this mess up. We'll be back in a minute. Okay guys, it's been about an hour and we've been running on this dial, we've been running about 300, 325, and over here on this dial, we've been running 275 locked in. And I really like that temperature. We've had blue smoke. I don't know if you can kind of see the smoke right there. It's thin, what I would consider thin and blue. So now it's time to actually look at this fire. And we're gonna do two things while we're looking at the fire. We wanna make sure, first of all, that we have a good coal bed. We don't wanna see just nothing but ash in there. We wanna see some coals. If there is no coals, then we're gonna have an opportunity to either break up the split that just burned and became charcoal, or we can go to our charcoal bag and grab a handful of coals. Don't be afraid to do that. It's like we're wanting to cook with wood, but the coal bed, like the wood gives you flavor and it produces smoke, but the coal bed is where the majority of your heat comes from. And so if you don't have a good coal bed, then you will not have enough heat to maintain even temperature in any pit. It doesn't matter what kind of pit it is. So I'm gonna put on my super high temp gloves here. Check this out. By the way, our air settings on this, just so you know, this air inlet on the side where the fire is all the way open, and the one where we're not burning is closed. And then I've got both of those exhausts open about 2/3. They're about 2/3 of the way open. You can manipulate these dampers all you want. If you maintain the same size fire, in other words, putting the same size split on and the same amount of wood every time you add wood, keeping your coal bed the same size the whole time, that's gonna give you a consistent amount of BTUs. If your wind direction, every pit is subjected to like wind direction issues. On the Smokeslinger, it's a little more forgiving on the full-size Smokeslinger and on the Liberty 94 just because of the design of the pits. But if you have a bigger pit, smaller pit, maybe a bigger firebox, smaller firebox, you can get into some issues with wind. So if you keep that wind a consistent velocity and direction, if you can control that somehow, you'll have a very even, very good cook. So anyway, let's go ahead and open this up, pull our drawer out, see what our coals look like. One other thing to note real quick, you're not gonna see me start whacking on this bed of coals and this log and stuff with like a fire poker. Whenever you bust up coals that are in a fire basket, you're going to expand that open, and it's going to expose a lot more surface area to oxygen. When you do that, the little bit of coal that you have will skyrocket in temp, and that's what's going to cause you to have a surge in temperature whenever you're done. You also want to minimize the amount of talking you're doing when you're doing this, because the longer your basket is out, the more your temperature is going to go up. It's going to take some time to recover. So anyway, enough talking, right? So we're going to go ahead and push this split. It's doing really nice. That's the one that we put on when we, right after we put the brisket on, or before, whatever it was. And the other stuff is all broke down. So I'm just gonna put this split straight down on the left side of that split that's already kind of burnt up, and this one on the right. And the reason I'm putting them on here this way, I want to crowd it a little bit, but I don't want to suffocate it. And the reason I'm doing that is to minimize, again, how much air can get around and expose. That's called a bundled fire. If you need to get hotter temperatures, then you would stack these with a lot of air between them. Now, as these logs get started, I'm going to let them sit out here like this and let them get started. Then we're going to shove this whole drawer in. If you do that, you can prevent a lot of the white smoke that you would normally have. There, we got our first flame there. I don't know if you could see it on the camera, but we're starting to flame up. Now I'm going to go ahead and shove this drawer in. We're just going to let it roll here for just a second. You want to let your logs catch and get flame on them before you shut your door down. And while we're doing this, our dial here, it did come down to about 260. The other dial over there is about 247 or so, looking at it like 245. But we've got both of our logs on fire now, and we can go ahead and shut this door. Now we're just going to watch our temperature come back up, and we should be able to coast along for at least another hour. What I do is, of course, over there is where the iced tea is over there. So I'm sitting over there at that little table and taking care of business in between running the fire and stuff. I literally set an alarm for 1 hour every single time, or a timer. And I can see this dial from the lawn chair, and I just want it to stay on that 275. It can get up to 300. It doesn't freak me out. 275, 300, something like that. Somewhere around hour number 4 is when we're actually going to open the lid and check on our brisket. I'm not going to open that lid until then. There's no point. All we're doing is running an oven right now. But it's burning wood, and that's good. Okay, guys, so it's been another hour. This is the 2-hour mark that we've been on the cooker now with our brisket. Let's go ahead and check things. You can see we still got, that's a little kind of starting to gray up a little bit, but it's still in that blue realm, I would call it, for blue smoke. We're still running. This one's 300. That one is like 265. This thing has been running so consistent. I'm really impressed. So let's pull this coal bed out, this drawer out, and see what our coal bed looks like. I see a little small lazy flame in the back, and that's what you want to see. That flame right there. So anyway, all right, so we want to be careful not to break up the logs that are in here. We're going to actually push this together but not break it. When you're burning in a smaller pit like this, breaking up that charcoal is the worst thing you can do, because it's just going to supercharge your flames. So this time I'm going to put my logs the other way. I'm going to have to go on a diagonal though, because my logs are just a little bit bigger than they were last time. And I'm going to put this up on top of those coals a little bit. I still want to be able to get enough air, so I'm going to twist that one. I still want to be able to get enough air so that this wood gets combustion, enough air for combustion, and it doesn't just sit there and smolder. All right, we're going to go ahead and push this back together. Okay guys, so it's been exactly 4 hours. Well, I say it's got like 7 minutes left before my little beeper goes off. So I wanted to jump on here real quick and explain a few things in our process. So at the 4-hour mark is where I want to wrap. I haven't looked at this brisket yet. So the thing that we're gonna do, whenever I open this up, we're gonna be looking at the edges of the brisket. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that table over and put the brisket up on the table and show you that. We're gonna look and see what it looks like for render. If that fat is super white, we're not going to wrap yet. We're gonna go ahead and let it cruise for another hour. However, if that fat is starting to yellow up on the sides and kind of pull a little bit where the point and the flat separate, you'll see that here in a minute. If that's starting to yellow up and start to look like it's getting a good render, then we're going to go ahead and wrap. Today's wrap, I've just got a jar of regular old tallow that Lisa bought off the internet. I think on Amazon. It's called Epic Beef Tallow. I never heard of it. Hopefully it's epic. I'm going to wrap in foil, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that tallow on there. Main reason I'm wrapping on with foil is because since this is a direct heat cooker, I'm trying to protect that brisket from some of that radiant heat. But I also don't want to lose any of my juice. I want to try to hold on to as much of that juice as I possibly can, because once I go to slicing this up and stuff like that, I'm going to separate the fat out of that and keep the au jus part, and just kind of dip my slices in that. Sometimes I like to cut that with a little bit of sauce, like a 50-50 of the juice to whatever, like a Head Country kind of a bold sauce like that. That's just how I've always liked it. It's really good that way. So anyway, I'm going to try to keep as much of that juice as I possibly can. It's alternate if you wanted to use butcher paper instead. Personally, I don't like to use butcher paper because it leaks, and I've never been smart enough to keep it from leaking. So I guess I just need to practice more is probably what's up with that. So anyway, here the cooker's been running straight up 300 on this side where the fire's at, and then we're running 275 on the left-hand dial. It's been cruising like that, like no problem, for an hour at a time. So this is my 4th time putting logs on for this cook. If you're manning your pit right, you shouldn't really have any issues with fire management. This thing basically runs itself, long as you minimize how much air gets to the fire. And then you can see here our smoke is pretty thin and blue. You want to try to maintain that blue smoke. You're going to have periods of time where that smoke will get gray or white, whatever. But that time is usually when you're adding a log or something like that, or if you shut dampers trying to drop your temperature down for some reason. Don't panic when that happens. It'll clear up. You just have to be patient and work with your dampers a little bit. And like I said, make sure that you maintain a good, healthy coal bed. If you lose your coal bed in here and you've just got sticks and a bunch of ash, then you're not going to have a pleasant cook. You're going to have to add some charcoal back in. I've had zero trouble maintaining my coal bed in this pit. Now, that rule with coal bed and ash and wood and stuff like that, that applies to every pit, not just this one. So we're going to look at that brisket and decide if we're going to wrap or not right now. Stay tuned. All right, guys, this is the moment. The little dinger just went off on my phone. It's time to look. Oh, yeah, boy. Look at that. That is a beautiful brisket right there. Fire's doing really nice. Let's look at this thing up closer. Man, it looks good. All right, let's do a little inspection here. Yeah, I see yellow. See yellow here. Right here's what you're looking for. Right there where that fat line is. See if you can see that right there. You can start to see that fat turning yellow. It's starting to kind of crinkle out just a little bit. I don't want to separate it. Don't want to blow it open, but man, is that a nice brisket or what? Okay, I'm ready to wrap this thing. So I'm gonna do a complete foil wrap on this. For right now, I gotta get my foil right, so I'm just gonna put this back on the pit for a second. Man, I am impressed. And it smells good too. There's one. Here's two. Oh yeah. So part of it, you want to make sure that you know the orientation when you're putting this together. Like if you're doing a paper wrap, you're going to put it on a certain way, and you're going to remember fat cap. Where's my fat cap? Where's my point? And that's what I'm doing here. So now I'm going to take a little bit of this tallow. So this brand of tallow, I've never used it before. It says Epic Rendered Beef Tallow, and it's been in the refrigerator. So because I wanted to get it out and have it kind of hard when I put it on, you know, because you can kind of measure it a little better. Boy, is it ever hard. There we go. I'm sure somebody in the comments has got a better way of doing stuff. Feel free to leave your tips on how you like to deal with tallow and how much you put on and stuff like that. Now I know that this is going to render quite a lot more as we continue cooking. So I'm not going to overload this with tallow. I'm just going to get enough on there so I like it. And I am going to leave my fat cap up for the last part of our cook here. Here we go. And whenever I do this, I like to roll the edges like this. There's a million ways to do that too. Then I come over and get this side, and I roll these edges. And we want to make sure that there's no air inside of here, because if there's air, the juices and the fat are going to steam, and that's going to cause our bark to loosen up. Another one of my favorite ways of wrapping is the foil boat, of course. I've done that quite a lot. That's where we leave the top open, but we crust over the side. It's going to help us build a tighter bark on top, and also help us render that fat cap more. In this case, I'm not doing that. And the reason I'm not doing that is because inside, the way the air flows on this cooker, it rolls off the top of that lid. And there's not that much distance from the top of the lid to the top rack. It's like 6 inches, 5-6 inches. So because of that, I prefer not to do foil boat on this, unless you're gonna put it on the bottom rack, and then you wouldn't have no trouble. So there you go on that. But we want to get a good tight wrap without busting our foil. And then I use 2 layers of foil on the bottom, because expanded metal cooking racks do have some places on there where it could actually pierce the foil and you'll lose all the juice, which is the whole point of the reason why we're wrapping this way, is we want to get that juice. So there you go. I am not concerned about temperature. I'm going to give this thing a full 8 hours. So we're going to be done here about 8:30 is what I think, because it took us a half hour to wrap. Let me get this back on the pit and we'll keep talking about that. Now my point is over here. I'm going to keep it that way for 2 hours, and then I'm going to rotate it because I don't want to blister this point yet. So I went right back on the bottom rack, and I'm going to just watch my time for the next 2 hours. And about, I don't know, hour number 8, I'm going to actually check our internal temp and feel more for tenderness and see where we're at before I get excited and pull it off the pit. So anyway, time to clean up my mess, grab another ice cold iced tea, and sit here in the shade and enjoy my day cooking on the full-size Smokeslinger in offset mode and making a champion style brisket. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Hey guys, real quick, I just remembered something I was going to do is rotate the brisket. Right now the point is facing towards the fire, and I want to flip that around now. We're in that last 2 hours of cooking, so I want to get some of that direct heat right on that into that flat and start to render that a little more. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. This is also a great opportunity for me to check the liquid level inside of the foil. Oh yeah. I'm telling you, that brisket is already like butter. We're gonna go ahead and rotate. Oh, there we go. We'll check on it here in about an hour. Okay guys, it's been 7 hours so far. We're gonna go ahead and check. Right now the temperature is still running solid. I'm pretty impressed with that. 300 degrees on this side, and we've been running still around 260 to 275 on this dial. It did go up a little hotter a couple of times after I added a log, but it still didn't get up above like 310. It's been like pretty consistently 275 or so to 300 the entire cook. So this is my first time sticking a thermometer in it. Let's see how it does. We're gonna go right in the spot right here on the flat. Oh man, that thing is butter. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're there. It's 210 in the flat. When I'm cooking at 300 degrees, I'm almost always gonna pull it somewhere around 207. So this brisket in the point is at 207 degrees. Perfect, we're done. 7 hour brisket. How do you think about that? Okay guys, real quick, I feel like I need to touch on the subject of tenderness. But before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this brisket out and set it here on the counter and open it up and let it steam off. There we go. So the most important thing to know right now is that we're going to open this thing up and we're going to let the steam energy radiate out of this. And I've got it in this pan right here so that I don't lose any of the moisture that I tried so hard to save by using this foil wrap. I'm going to leave the piece that's under it under there because I do plan on rewrapping this really tight, and I can replace the top piece if I have to. There we go. I don't know about you, that brisket looks really good right there. I'll get it out here in a minute, but we don't want to really wrestle with this or move it around too much while it's straight out of the pan or out of the cooker. Drain some of this liquid out, this tallow and the juice. Put it just under it. That's fine. Open that up so we can breathe. When you're working, cooking at different temperatures, let's say you're cooking at 225 to 240, your internal temperature, like the doneness temperature, is going to be a lot lower than when you get up to a higher temp. So in competition barbecue, when we were cooking like 300, 350, 400 degrees to do hot and fast brisket, I know that sounds insane, but that's just kind of the way that the competition barbecue scene has kind of evolved. And you know, the way that that works is you want to get that fat to render, and we know that the fat rendered, it's no different than a boiling temperature of like a liquid. If you're at sea level, the boiling temperature is 212 for water. If you go up to like Denver or Mile High or whatever, 5,280 feet, then above sea level, then you wind up with like a 195 degree boiling temperature. So everything that turns from a solid to a liquid has this temperature. Everything that turns from a liquid to a vapor also has a temperature like that, bubble point stuff. So anyway, when it comes to fat rendering and things like that, we know that we've got the right fat render and the temperature based on whatever that liquid's temperature is inside the brisket. So at a 300 degree, like 275 to 300, I want to see that internal temperature of this. If you're going to cook by temperature, I want to see it be somewhere around 208 to 210. Seems like my best briskets ever have done that. Now, if you're cooking at a lower temperature, you'll see that a lot of these guys throw around the 203 degree temperature. That 203 corresponds more like the 250 to 265, 275 max. 203 would be a great temperature to pull your brisket at, and then if you're going to wrap it up and hold it for a really long hold like that, that's another method. But it's really important to understand though that your hold temperature can't be this really super hot, energized, you know, like really excited temperature that you're getting straight out of the pit. So what we used to do is we would just pull it out and open it up and wait till the steam stopped. That's when we would wrap it up. These days what I do, I've got that nice warmer in there that's got a thermostat on it that's going to maintain, you know, 150 or whatever I set it for. You want to make sure that your holding temperature stays above 140, which is the safe holding temperature. The 40 degrees to 140 is called the no zone. So you just got to be out of that no zone. So as long as we're at 150 to 160, that's a great temperature to hold meat at. Now, especially for a really long hold. But if this brisket is 200 degrees or 185 or something like that, when you put it in that warmer that has a thermostat on it that's going to maintain 150, 160, this thing's going to start out at that high temperature and have to coast down inside that warm environment. So what I always do in this situation, which we'll cover warmers here in a second in a little more depth. Oh my gosh, the wiggle on that brisket is insane. So like right now, it's been sitting here open to atmosphere and it's still at 208. It may take, you know, 30, 45 minutes for this thing to come down closer to 160. Sometimes I'll let it sit out for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. I want to get down as close as I can to that 160 before I put it in that warmer. Now, if you tent this, keep in mind, you've got a lot of moisture in here. You've got a lot of heat energy escaping and coming up. You're going to have steam also. And so that steam will actually cause your bark layer to come loose. If you look here in this other camera, one of my favorite tests is to just push my finger down on it like this in that nice rendered fat and see if I get like a big pile of bark, and I didn't. I just got a few flakes of pepper. That's how I know my bark is set. It's super liquidy right now. Like this fat is so rendered and soft. I mean, it's glorious. I don't really want to move it around too much because then those fibers of the meat will pull apart. So I guess right now the most important thing to keep in mind is get yourself a good digital thermometer like this one, stick it inside the meat and just wait for that temperature to come down. It holds for quite a long time and then it'll start to come down. Don't tent over it. We want to get air, we want to let it breathe, keep the flies off, stuff like that. And whenever you get down closer to that 160 temp, that's when I would put this into the warmer, but I'm going to make sure that it's already at 160 before I put it in there. Now, a couple other ways you can hold if you're not fancy like me and you don't have an electronic warmer that has that kind of technology in it. You can actually hold it in a cooler. You can hold it in a Cambro. Cambro is a brand of insulated hot holding cabinet. They've got styrofoam ones and they've got double wall density, high density foam, but double wall plastic around them. That's what I have. You still want to bring it down to 180 at least before you put it in there, and you're still going to have the chance of carryover cooking, which is why we want this temperature to come down, that carryover cooking. I like to get below 160 because at 165, that's when fat starts to render, and I don't want this thing to continue to render. I want it to stop right now. That's why we're leaving it open. We're going to let this temperature come down, and you know, that's going to stop that carryover cooking part of the process. So anyway, we can do a brisket. Basically, this was after trim, probably, I'm guessing 15 pounds. 14 to 15 pounds. We can do that brisket in 7 hours with perfect render, a perfect finish on the full-size Smokeslinger. Tomorrow morning, of course, I'm gonna have to end it for tonight. Once this is gonna take a while for this to come down to temperature. I'm not gonna show putting it in my warmer necessarily. You'll just have to believe me that I did that. Maybe I'll show bringing it out in the morning. But I think in the morning, we're gonna come back out here to the pit and we're gonna fire up the full-size Smokeslinger and put the planchas in there. And we're gonna cook us some eggs and make some burritos and use this brisket in those burritos. And it's gonna be phenomenal. Not very often I wake up to a brisket breakfast. It's gonna be pretty incredible. So I'll just put my glasses on here and give you another kind of an inspection here on this fat render. Oh yeah. Yeah, that is, it's all like, it's glorious. That yellow fat down in there. Oh man. And that point, the flat, I mean, it feels perfect. And the flavor is off the charts. Once again, I used Mr. John Cook's beef rub that he sent me. Pretty proud of that stuff. I like it a lot. So anyway, guys, till tomorrow morning, we're gonna go ahead and put this in the warmer, and I'll see you, and it's gonna be like a flash. You'll come right back. I'm gonna put this in the warmer and have me a good evening. And I don't know what Lisa's bringing home for dinner, but she decided to go out and grab something. So we'll see you in the morning. Okay guys, we're back at the pit this morning. I've got a nice little piece of shade here. Hopefully you can see the cutting board as I cut this brisket. I pulled the brisket off and let it cool down. It took about 45 minutes, nearly an hour for it to get down from about 205 all the way down to 168 or so. Whenever I got to that temperature, I re-wrapped the brisket really tight, and then I just covered it with this extra layer of foil. And then we held in the warmer from 9 o'clock last night at about 160, 150 degree temperature range all night long. I pulled it out of there this morning about 8:30. It is 9:04, so it's been sitting here with me, getting all prepped and ready to go since about 9 o'clock or about 8:30. I've got the full size lit behind me here, and I've got the plancha in. We're gonna make some breakfast burritos out of this whenever we're done here. So anyway, let's get this brisket out of here and check it out, see what it looked like. It smells amazing, my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna do this thing I like to do, the hang test. Get rid of that too. Here we go, guys. Oh my goodness. I hope it's, look at that. That's what a 12-hour rest does. We didn't crack. This is the point right here. Look at that wiggle. I do know one thing. This is gonna be really great. Hopefully they can see that. Yeah, that fat is like just melted warm butter on the stove. Here goes the first slice, the slice that everybody wants to see. Here's the magic moment. Look at that. I don't know if you guys can see that. That's the flat side. Look at that wiggle. That is a direct heat smoker 7-hour brisket. Okay, now I'm gonna cut my favorite slice on the whole brisket here, right here. And I'm gonna tell you what it tastes like. That's the edge where the point and the flat come together. That's the top of the fat on the flat right there. There's another good slice, look at that. I really wanted to eat on this last night, I tell you. Here we go, here's the bite. Man, that is good. It's not too peppery. I expected to have a lot more pepper, but as far as the pepper goes, it's really well balanced. It's not overpowering. The smoke flavor on it is surprisingly not super heavy. I expected this to have a lot more, because I did have a little bit of white smoke here and there, but for the most part, it was a good thin blue smoke the whole time. And I expected to have a little more intense smokiness in that bite. Really good salt, but it doesn't hide the beef. And that's one thing I think is really important about an SPG rub, is that whenever you're working with beef like this, it doesn't just like when you bite it, you're not just tasting a bunch of seasoning. Like you actually get that beef and all the work we did with the tallow and all of that. You can see my fat cap is just about a little more than a quarter what I kept on there, trimming it with that knife the way I did. It helped me to get a really good cut on that. You can see a little bit of a smoke ring there, but not a huge intense like dirty smoke ring. Also, it's important to note that whenever I put my rub on this brisket, it wasn't sitting on there for like hours. I probably had like 15 to 20 minute sweat time on the brisket. So we didn't like kill it with a bunch of time and just let that salt really brine in there, nothing like that. It sat in the cooker all that time, you know, and it's still getting that reaction with the smoke and stuff like that, causing that smoke ring. So a little bit, you can see it a little better here on that right there. It's just super tender, super moist. We're gonna make a breakfast burrito. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we got a super hot fire here. We've got our coals on this side. We got our plancha over here. I slid it over so we could let this cool down just a little bit. Just because we're doing eggs, we're not trying to do like a bunch of beef or something. And my grease is running down, so I gotta turn this around. So when your tallow is running off or whatever, just flip your plancha around so the grease doesn't run out the grease hole into your fire. That's a great way to do it. And then first things first, when you're running the planchas, you should have like 450 degrees. Right now, that's a bit hot on there. Anyway, here we go. There's the eggs. That's crazy how awesome this thing cooks with eggs, man. If you ever do a French omelet where you roll it over and stuff, you can totally do that. By the way, we're using tallow right now. Well, anyway, our eggs are done. If you're watching, let's get some tortillas out. One for my girl, one for me. We don't need to be too hot when you're doing eggs, so that's why we kind of moved it off over here. It's just perfect. Get some brisket slices here. I'm gonna slice some brand new here because I want moist side. That's where I go every time. By the way, for the YouTube audience, we are live in our Facebook group right now on this same moment in time, because our Facebook group is one of the most important places on the internet to us. Here goes big old slice of brisket. Boom, another big old slice of brisket. That's how I like it. Boy, look at that. I think that one needs just another piece on it for some reason. Then I've got this green salsa. Put a little bit of that, she likes that a good bit. It's gonna be messy. And because I don't mind getting it all over me, we're going in for the money shot here. We're gonna take some of this juice and dribble it on brisket slice. Man, would you look at that. I'll just eat that. But we got eggs. Let's get the eggs on there. Bam. Okay, get in there for your shot right there. I want that one. Look at that guy.
Hold it over and grill it.
I'm just gonna eat it. It's too hot to eat right now. Move this way up here so it doesn't overheat. So you can control your temperature by keeping above the fire, off the fire, moving stuff around on here, stuff like that, but there's that. Okay guys, that was interesting. So we filmed this on the camera and tried to accommodate a live stream in our Smokeslinger Pit Owners group for the guys that are over here watching right now as I take this majestic bite. This brisket, I am very, very happy with how this brisket turned out. So we put the tortillas on the plancha after our eggs were done to heat them up. We got and we had tallow on the planchas to keep it oiled. We put this tortilla shell down on the plancha over a little bit of tallow. We put cheese inside the tortilla. We got brisket slices on there, some of that green salsa that I really like. We put a little bit of that au jus on top of the green salsa, and then we put the egg on here. So this ought to be a dang good bite right there. Here we go. Oh my gosh, it is unbelievable. That's that brisket, that moist side of that brisket. So can you make an offset smoker quality brisket on the full-size Smokeslinger? And will it get done in about half the time? Yes, absolutely. This one stands up there probably in my top 5 briskets, I think. Normally, I don't sit and babysit everything, but this time I did because I wanted to really put out the best brisket I possibly could. And honestly, babysitting this cooker all day looked like me sitting there playing on Facebook, drinking iced tea all day long. Only got out of the chair like every hour, basically, to put 2 splits on the fire. I documented that entire process. This brisket here, SPG, minimal trim, Sam's choice brisket. There's nothing special about it. Started out at 18 pounds, trimmed it down to about 14 pounds. It's just a great, great way to cook a brisket, in my opinion. And we used all wood. That's another question people ask all the time. So now I have to go back and get the Liberty 94, and I've got to do that same thing again and show you that video. So last time when I did the comparison with the two, I didn't give it that rest, and people want to see the rest. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Till next time, keep your smoke thin and blue. Make yourself a brisket on a full-size Smokeslinger. See ya.